Chapter 10. Men in Black. I became quite active on Gersten's website and the Cause website. I started to write and publish short excerpts about my experiences on the ranch. I told about my wife levitating, the greys in the house, car keys materializing above my head in the air and dropping on me, the animal deaths, and everything else that I could think of to include. The response was quite good. I was a first-hand source. That is gold in the UFO world. People have an innate understanding of when they're being lied to, and people, no matter how educated or unsophisticated, intrinsically know there is something wrong with the whole host of retired military people dominating the exopolitics world. So my stories were very well received. I began to receive communication from all over the world. The phone would ring. I would answer it. The person on the other end would introduce themselves as a famous psychic from Paris or Spain or another part of the United States or any part of the world, and they would begin to tell me things about the ranch. I was told that my ranch sat above one of the largest freshwater aquifers in the United States, and in fact, it is true. There is an enormous freshwater aquifer underneath me. I was told that there was a portal on my property. Not knowing what a portal was, I asked. It was explained to me that a portal was a doorway between dimensions, or what I might understand as time and space. The portal had been there for thousands of years. There was little or no understanding of where it came from, at least at this early stage of my investigation, and communication with the world that had begun to take interest in my story. The portal was not only between locations, but it was also a time anomaly. This meant the portal could take beings from one time to another. I was told by several of these psychics who randomly called me from distant locales in the world that this was unique and not a typical portal. I didn't feel lucky. They didn't know what it was like to live at the ranch. I didn't know what to make of all of this stuff. I mean, just imagine me, puttering about the ranch, working on a Harley Davidson or an old 72 Chevy pickup truck, doing a full restoration, going into the house to get a glass of iced tea and hearing the phone ring, answering, and getting another person on the other end of the phone from another part of the world, telling me that they're psychic and telling me about the place where I live. Put yourself in my shoes. Honestly, it all got to be a bit much. I did note the strange coincidence of the phone line becoming a major source of information, given that the installation of the phone line was my first history of the property from a Buckeye resident, the brave soul who finally took the installation contract with Southwest Bell. Now the phone line was bringing me information from all over the world, from people who could allegedly see into these other dimensions of time and space that the rest of us are blocked from due to the gross nature of our senses and our mind dominating our perception. The phone line had worked for me. I had a few friends in the community, outliers like myself, who lived in the unincorporated municipality of Rainbow Valley, people with their plots of land living the same way I was. I can corroborate what the psychics told me, that the phenomenon on my ranch, in particular, was vastly superior to any other locale around me, is true. Some of my neighbours were experiencing the lights in the sky, and they did have a few bizarre things happening at their properties, but nothing compared to what Joyce and I were going through at Stardust Ranch. I started to learn a lot about the world of UFOs and extraterrestrials. I started to meet more of the players involved. All of this stemmed from my initially reaching out to Captain Robert Collins. In certain circles, my story was a Tier 1 story. A Tier 1 story is a story with direct contact with UFOs repeating. I started to draw a lot of attention. In the world of UFOs, attention is not always a good thing. You indeed meet other experiences like yourself, and it's an opportunity to commiserate and share stories and heal to a certain extent, but you also bring officialdom into your life. I can tell you unequivocally that the greatest source of disinformation on UFOs is coming from the United States government. Everything they do is meant to obfuscate. Remember, government at an etymological level means to govern the mind, from the Latin mente, which means mind. It's impossible for a government that does not have the support of the people to control a large population without fear, tyranny, and secret police, as was the case in some of the communist countries in Eastern Europe. All control is maintained through a collective fairy tale that everyone wants to believe because it's convenient, and not believing it would raise too many uncomfortable questions. My reputation as a restoration man for old cars, trucks, and motorcycles was getting quite good as well. Orders were coming in from all over Arizona and from out of state. It was good to keep busy during these times. The last thing you want to be is inactive when you have a lot of stuff to think about that is unpleasant. so I was very grateful for the work. I was also able to supplement the income at the ranch so that we could get the things that we needed. The activity at the ranch continued as normal, or what we had come to define as normal after more than 10 years of living on the ranch. The abduction attempts stopped after the AK-47 incident. At least we thought they stopped at the time. Joyce was no longer floating down the hall and out the house through the wall. I guess that was a good thing, all things considered at Stardust Ranch. Things were still going missing in the house, and other usual nonsense was continuing. It had been a while since one of my animals was killed. I was very grateful for this. I guess you could say I slipped into a kind of routine. I didn't go out in the desert in the Jeep as much as I used to. Those days I was going out maybe once a week. Most of my time was spent in my workshop. There were, however, new events happening. One of the strangest was what I called the Michelin Man. There was an advertising campaign, not sure what decade it was, but it featured the Michelin Man, which appeared to be a man made out of moulded marshmallows and all white. It was an ad campaign dreamed up by a bunch of goons for a tyre company, Michelin Tyres. If you remember the advertisements, the Michelin Man appeared quite tall, quite thick through the centre, very much like the giant marshmallow man at the end of the first Ghostbusters movie. One night I was outside tending to some chores in the stable. I happened to look over my shoulder behind the ranch, out into the desert, and I saw a figure walking. It had the shape of a human being, meaning that it had walked erect on two legs, and had arms swinging beside it, but the gait was different than a human being. It almost looked like the gait that you see in all the old Bigfoot grainy videos. It stood anywhere between 10 and 12 feet high. At least that's what it appeared to be off in the distance. I would say it was about a quarter of a mile away, just walking across the desert. Now, this may sound strange, but I didn't get all worked up about it. I didn't stop what I was doing in the stable. I didn't run back into the house and grab a camcorder, nor did I walk out to get a closer look at whatever the creature was. I had made my peace with the ranch. Odd things were going on. I wasn't the creator and definer of all reality. Those days were behind me, the simple human arrogance of running out and attacking something you don't understand. It wasn't right on my land, so I didn't care what was going on out there. Live and let live, I figured. However, just like the Greys, when something happens once, and when it happened so that a human being was aware of it, that is to say, there was a witness, it seemed to happen more frequently after the first witnessing. I started to see a large lumbering creature, the Michelin Man, on a more regular basis. It was like he had joined the cast of this Twilight Zone episode that was Stardust Ranch and kept coming back in a recurring role. It also started to get a little bit closer to the ranch. This caused me some concern. On one particular occasion, it was quite close to the home. I decided that enough was enough. I went into the house and grabbed the AK-47 with a banana clip. I came back out and the creature had not withdrawn, and it appeared to have no sense of what was coming, no sense of danger, and it was encroaching on my home. I opened fire. Neither the noise or the bullets deterred the creature whatsoever. I might as well have been tickling it rather than shooting it with an AK-47. To this day, I continue to see the Michelin Man periodically. I managed to see it up close on a few occasions, and it looked like it was made of Brillo pads. Midday visit. I can't remember exactly when it was, except to say it was sometime in the year I really went public, sometime when I started posting a lot on the web, and sometime when I started going on the internet radio and coast to coast. I think this would have been around 2008, but sometime around that time I had a very strange encounter. It was about midday. One of my nearby neighbours had driven over in his pickup truck and we were having a beer in the backyard. I had all my guns out on the picnic table. I had laid out a tablecloth to make sure none of the screws went through the crevices in the wood, and I was giving them a good cleaning. At that time, I had somewhere between 10 and 15 guns. It's a whole afternoon to clean them all. Any of you who collect guns know what I'm talking about. You have to break the guns down a little bit, scrub the chambers, and oil and polish. I enjoyed doing it. It took my mind off things. My neighbour, who will go unnamed in these pages, dropped by because he wanted a few tips on cleaning and maintaining his weapons as well. So while we were there, drinking a few beers, listening to the radio, and cleaning the guns, a dark-coloured SUV pulled up in front of my laneway. It parked about 10 feet back from the entrance to the laneway. 2 men in black suits got out. I know what you're thinking. You can't be serious. I'm being serious. The 2 men, about average height, walked shoulder to shoulder the 10 feet to the large iron gate that was closed. It was like a big cattle gate that stood about 10 feet high, made of solid metal bars. Now, most people looking to get my attention would stand there and wait until I addressed them, or walk down the laneway to talk to them, or, if they were impatient, they might yell out to get my attention. Cops do that. It's a power thing. These gentlemen walked right through the gate. Now, I fully realised what I just said. They walked through the gate like the gate was made of cigarette smoke. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, but remember, what I was willing to believe had greatly amplified in the time I had been living at Stardust Ranch. My neighbour was speechless. He kept looking at them and then looking back at me. He had heard some of the stories about my ranch, and I told him quite a few stories as well. I had no explanation for what was going on, and I wasn't able to tell him anything. The two men in black suits each wore sunglasses and black fedora hats. With God and my neighbour as my witness, everything I'm saying right now happened. They walked down the long 100-yard laneway. The footsteps made dust on the dirt. I remember thinking, how come their feet are solid enough to kick up the dust from the dirt laneway, but they pass right through a metal gate? My neighbour was mute as stone. I think he may have even been in some kind of shock. They stopped about 6 feet in front of me. My neighbour was behind me, sitting in a picnic table full of guns. I had noticed the black sedan they came up in had government-issued black plates. It was just completely surreal. There was something off about their skin. It was like uncooked chicken skin, pale and clammy. I said, "Can I help you, gentlemen?" One of the men in black stepped in closer, so that he was about a foot away from my face. He looked right me in the eyes and said, "You're John Edmonds, and you're going to stop publishing articles on Peter Gersten's Cause website." I said, "Excuse me?" He had repeated exactly what he had said the first time in the same pitch, like I was hearing an audio recording replayed. "You're John Edmonds, and you're going to stop publishing articles on Peter Gersten's Cause website." With that, the men in black turned around and started to walk down the laneway. My neighbour and I watched them walk the entire laneway and once again pass right through the metal gate at the roadway. They got in their sedan and drove away. My neighbour waited about 10 minutes after they left, and then he left. He was shaken. We passed the unusual stupid questions. Did that really just happen? Did they walk right through the gate? Did you see their skin? What was with that voice before his departure? It was events like this that garnered me a reputation in Rainbow Valley. But people had to be careful about what they said. They could end up looking crazy trying to describe something that happened at my property, like the man in black. While working on this book with Bruce, we spent hours discussing how to tell the story. More specifically, how could we draw a circle around this story to give it a whole body so that it didn't just read like a series of interconnected vignettes of the paranormal. We both decided that we wanted to take our best shot at trying to describe what was going on this planet, what is going on with the human race, and what is happening with our minds and the powers that be on this planet in their ability to make us look foolish and stupid when we try to describe things that happened. First, let me be clear. What Dwight D. Eisenhower called the military-industrial complex is now the military-industrial entertainment complex. That means a lot of the ideas that Hollywood and the TV studios get are from the CIA, from NASA, from the NSA, and from the deeper pockets of government that exist without any public lettering or signage whatsoever. And believe me when I tell you that such agencies that go undocumented do exist. So why would they do this? They do it because they understand something that human beings don't understand about our consciousness as of yet. At the basic level of consciousness, there is a rift between the real and the fictive. But at the level of pure experience, there's no difference between dream and reality. So by that rationale, if we make a movie called Men in Black and make a comedy about it, everybody who seriously goes onto the public stage to talk about an encounter with the Men in Black looks foolish. But it's more than that. The human race has a collective unconscious. It in Latin is referred to as spiritus mundi. This collective unconscious allows us to experience reality collectively and then communicate with each other. The vast majority of human beings are completely unconscious of it. That's why it's called the unconscious. We are all highly intuitive beings as well. The deepest parts of human consciousness communicate to us through our intuition. When something builds up in the collective unconscious, it can be brought out collectively by what the Greeks called a catharsis. Catharsis is achieved when very strong and sometimes repressed emotions are released from a human being. The Greeks recognized that these feelings could be pulled out of a human beings by a drama. They created the Greek tragedies. What the entertainment component of the military-industrial entertainment complex does is provide false catharsis. If the collective unconscious is building an understanding of something, along comes a movie that draws the emotions out and attaches the mind to the concept that first defines it. This means that every time someone hears Men in Black, they think of Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones. They think of comedy. They think of everything that isn't serious. This is another chapter in the deep understanding of the human mind that is used to manipulate us. Government propaganda, through Medicine Avenue and advertising and public relations, but it goes far deeper than that. As I said earlier in this story, psychiatry is the only medical art that is used against us in the contravention of the Hippocratic Oath. If the average person truly understood the level of the mind control going on in the first world countries, and especially in the United States, there would be a bloody revolution in the streets tomorrow. End of chapter 10.